Hello and welcome to Teenagers Untangled, the audio hug for parents going through the tween and teen years. I'm Rachel Richards, journalist, parenting coach, mother of 2 teenagers and 2 bonus daughters. Now, this podcast began with me picking problems that I'm having or that you've asked me about, and then doing the research and talking about it with Susie. More recently, I've been chatting with my daughters because they're old enough now, and the feedback I've been getting is it's been fantastic. But I'm also reading a lot of fantastic books and meeting interesting people who I want to share with friends like you. So you may have heard of Clarkson's Farm, and now you get to hear about Jamie's Farm, a place that's quietly transformed the lives of thousands of young people across the UK. It's not a concentration camp, it's not a retreat, it's a working farm, and it brings together vulnerable or struggling teenagers, many at risk of exclusion from school, and it gives them something they might never have experienced before: purpose, belonging, trust and hope. Now, Tish Fielden is a trained psychotherapist who helped build this model alongside her son Jamie, who's a former teacher. To date, Jamie's Farm has supported over 12,000 young people with impressive results. Schools report reduced exclusions, better behaviour, improved mental health and stronger relationships. So, without further ado, Tish, thank you very much for joining us in our club.
Very nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Tish, can you start by telling us what inspired you and Jamie to set up Jamie's Farm and how your backgrounds as a psychotherapist and teacher shaped the idea?
Well, as a parent, you see what helps your children thrive and what they struggle with. And Jamie was a bright child who actually loathed going to school because all he ever wanted to do was farm. And what I saw was he thrived on engagement, as did his brother and sister. And we were lucky enough to have what actually is more technically a small holding, but he managed to take on farming all the land around us of people who weren't using their land. And he had over 60 animals by the time he was 14. And what I saw was that he was a young man who really would get frustrated at school, being asked to sit still, had massive physical energy, a drive to accomplish things, to have outcomes. And those are the things that I felt that a lot of children would benefit from. And having worked as a psychotherapist with teenagers and with families and with schools, I felt like the clinical setting of psychotherapy and the setting of school often was not going to bring out the best in children, and they needed a moment to pause and rewind and have a fresh start. And Jamie had gone into teaching, given we didn't have enough land for him to, be a farmer. And his father was very, again, the idea of him farming, because his father was much more academic. And I think when my husband died suddenly, which was a tragedy, he felled a tree on himself. We had this big crater in our lives, and we just thought, well, let's do something positive to fill this big hole. And we've got this beautiful place that we live in with lots of barns and a bit of land. And he invited the children from the school he had been teaching at with Teach First. And the children told us this was fantastic for them. I mean, it was the results that motivated us. It was the testimonials, listening to the children, seeing the switch around in them, seeing how within 5 days they thrived. And then it became, we've got to do more of this. So we set it up as a charity, and we have 6 farms now and work with over 17,000 children. But we never thought that would happen to start with. It was, if you like, why not give this a go? And I loved the idea of what I would call therapy on the hoof. It's conversations that are reflective in a much more easy setting with, like any parent, when you've got a third position, like you're driving or you're going somewhere or you're doing a task together. Conversation flows more naturally. It doesn't feel as intrusive. So for both of us, yeah.
I love this. And it's funny because I live in the countryside, and I drove out of London just on Sunday night through all the suburbs. And all I kept thinking was, wow, how transformative it would be for any of these kids who have, who've experienced this life or who've locked into a negative situation to just be free not free on a farm, but be able to actually enjoy work and the farming environment. I've got so many farmer friends, and it's really, it's hard toil in some ways. But I remember Anae Nin talking in her diary about how incredible it was when she was expected to work when she was, I think, 13, 14, because her mum was very ill. And she said, all my worries have gone because I feel I have purpose. I feel great.
No, I think purpose is the big thing that children are missing, that sense of making a difference, of having value, and being outcomes that can be celebrated.
Yes.
Achieve something. Don't you or I feel better at the end of the day if we feel, well, at least I cracked that problem or did that or made that happen? And in a day when nothing happens for children that they can feel, that they can take ownership of, and feel a sense of pride for, I think they too get frustrated and they don't feel good about themselves.
Yes. And I think school increasingly feels quite disconnected from real life. So could you walk us through a typical 5-day stay at Jamie's farm? What would the kids be experiencing?
Well, they'll arrive and the first thing they say is, oh, it stinks here. Most children, they have never left, the majority of our children have never left the cities. They've probably not been very far from their own homes. So their worldview is very kind of London-centric, or the other cities that they're living in. And what they immediately receive is that the people who are pleased to see them, our staff, are highly skilled, but in transferring that sense right from the instance that we're really pleased they're here and that they get this very warm welcome. But right from the off, when they introduce each other, we ask them to introduce someone and say what they like about them. And I love that. An immediate switch, because between teenagers, often, as you know, the kind of language is quite negative and joshy, and it's supposed to be funny, but it's actually very cutting and wounding. So right from the beginning, we're modelling for them. This is a place where we value people and where we look after each other, and we look for what the qualities are in someone that you can celebrate. And then they get to go out on the farm tour that first day. They're in these, all of our farms have got these beautiful, welcoming, big spaces, barns with kitchens in them, where they can feel this is the hub of the home, and they get that sense of belonging and overall safety, because the comments they make even on day one is, I can't hear any sirens. I don't feel I've got my back.
Yes.
We forget.
Calms the nervous system.
Yeah. Children are hypervigilant, and that's survival, isn't it? But it's tragic that so many of these children, you literally watch them decompress. And they're in small bedrooms, 2 or 3 together. It's very much a group of 12, so they can relate with their teachers, 2 or 3 teachers who can build relationships. And then from day 2, they are in small groups working on the farm, or swapping over and helping in the vegetable garden, or cooking, or they're doing, they get time to do one-to-one horse work. The therapeutic is woven in almost in a very kind of invisible way. And we sit around that table that they eat at. So they'll get up, and the thing I haven't prefaced this with is they have no phones, because right from the word off we say,
oh, interesting,
with no phones. So those distractions that would normally keep them head down looking at a screen, suddenly they're making eye contact. They're having time to notice who's in the group. We do check-ins and shout-outs in the morning, after lunch, in the evening. And in that way, we're asking them how they feel. It's so simple in a family. We sometimes do it. I've got 9 grandchildren, and all my kids live very close to me, and we go away a couple of times a year together, as well as often collect at weekends.
Wow.
Sometimes the kids say, can we do a check-in? And it's their way of grounding themselves and seeing who else is hearing, listening, how they are. And then importantly, they do shout-outs, which is remarking on qualities that they've never noticed before in each other. Like, I didn't know you were so brave, or you were really kind, or you know, the way you helped me up that hill, I was really struggling. Or
wow.
And that happens between adults and children as well as child to child.
So how do you do that? Do you just say we do this when we're here, or how do you instigate that?
We just say this is what we do. And
Right.
if you're very clear in your expectations, it's interesting how they go, oh, this is what they do here, because it's such a different setting. But equally, they get a sense that we could do that in class, we could do that at home.
Yes.
What I'm interested in is everything being transferable, so that this experience that builds their confidence from the inside, and it's like they're like a plant, you're nurturing them so they've got a strong root system. So you're building the confidence to say how they feel and who they are. And one of the things, because the adults join in, that authenticity, I think it's critical to children feeling accepted and seen. So that's the sense of family and belonging, if you like, round that table. And then they're out in those groups working, and they're coming back with a sense of pride. And they're working in teams, and they're working in a way that people can thank them and congratulate them because they're contributors. And that's
Amazing.
Really life-changing for a lot of children. And then because it's woven in that they can talk about how they feel, if they're feeling frightened or they're feeling antagonistic towards someone, there's time to have the reflection. It's like, okay, let's start where you are. What's going on here? That I'm curious rather than judgmental. And with the sprinkling of the positive and the understanding that we have of how their brains are, instead of getting into lecturing children, which we know the frontal cortex isn't fully developed, it's literally you're talking to a stone wall because they've often put the barrier up. Very often we're persuading them to be in a different place. So we're not where they are, which is in the here and now. That's how their brains are. And mostly the social brain, which is, their antennae is what do my friends think?
Yes, for sure.
Do they like me? Do they approve of me? And that is being fed, that social confidence. So for me, the intervention was accidental, if you like. We did what we did as a family together with these children. And now we do it across 7 farms. But what I'm trying to do is we're trying to translate that back into schools to inspire teachers to build more of that relational practice.
Yes.
And give them a sense of agency. They feel so disempowered at an age that they need to feel a little bit of I can make that transition to adulthood. I'm not so scared.
I love this. It's funny, when I was a young girl, teenager, I stayed at another girl's house. And while I was eating supper, the father actually asked me how my day had been. And I had never had an adult man ask me something like that. And it was transformative. I think just taking somebody from one setting and just putting them in a really warm setting like yours, I can see how that would happen, because you suddenly go, oh, we can do things this way. And then with your ability to actually tease out their emotions and how they're feeling about something, that's incredible. So what kind of struggles and challenges are these kids experiencing that leads them to are they referred to you, or how do they end up with you?
Yeah, they come through. The school will select a group of 12 children that they think aren't thriving, and that will usually be a mix of children who are not engaging. They may be truanting, or they may be just switched off in lessons. They may have, be feeling these children have got low-level mental health issues. They're quite depressed, a lot of children in this generation. They will choose some children who they're struggling to get a handle on understanding, because they have, in some way, they've got special needs. So they may be ADHD, and they may be on the autism spectrum, or it may be a lot of these children with dyslexia feel a failure, and yet they're very bright, creative beings, as you know. And then a third of them will be children who are right up on the edge of exclusion. The way that they show that life is not working out for them is that they're oppositional. They can be very difficult to manage. They can be the children who appear angry, but actually, I will say, an angry child is an upset child. It's our job is to help get alongside what is driving the behaviour. So behaviours a communication. And so those children, I had one teacher the week before Easter here. The children were in the courtyard here at the Bath Farm, and they were singing, and they were shouting together, and they were singing and playing and having so much fun, and they were really exuberant and loud. And this teacher said to me, "I've never ever heard their voices in school. These are the children he had chosen.
Wow.
They do not engage." And because some schools are so disciplinarian, and if a child doesn't have social confidence, of course they just mumble and walk along the corridors in silence because they have to, and they don't join in lunch hours, or there's so little free time in school because they're under so much pressure to push them through the academic system. And the children are saying to me, "I don't see the point. I want to learn about how I'm going to cope," because they're quite anxious teenagers about the next step, aren't they? "I want to know how to pay my bills, or what is tax, or how am I going to find a place to live, or
absolutely
get a job." So I think we're missing doing that preparation as the adults, supporting them to face the next step. And I think the most shocking thing I've heard this year is that we have nearly 2 million children between 15 and 25 who are neither in education or employment. And
it's heartbreaking.
Yes. So it's not working, is it?
No, it's not. And actually, I mean, you're onto something really important, because I think right from when my kids were 12, 13, they were desperate to sort of scratch and sniff the real world. They wanted to be out there. They wanted to be working, but we hold them back because, we now have laws in place to protect children from being abused by work situations. But those same laws are stopping kids going out and actually feeling purposeful. And it's really a problem because they need that. They need that.
And we could create it, if we had more open doors, in a sense, to community and a sense of involvement. I think for a lot of, in the countryside, the children here say to me, "Tish, why do you say hello to everybody?"
Same.
And you say, "Well, actually, because people are super friendly and helpful, and lots of them." And of course, in a city, there isn't that sense of connection often, but it can be created, and that's what I feel passionate about, supporting other projects to create that meaningful sense of, where kids help people of the older generation or the younger.
Yes.
They love it when they have to go into a primary school, or if it's a mixed school, to help with their learning, or help them in the supervisor playground, or they love it when they get to do something that makes them feel good, isn't it?
I completely agree. Yes.
Yeah.
And I've been seeking out for my kids more opportunities to be involved in community operations where they, and taking the skills that they have, which a lot of people on these things are quite old and they don't actually have some of the social media skills and things that our kids can bring, or just, boots on the ground. It's very valuable, and it gives them that sense of, oh, I'm worth it. I'm, something I can do is useful.
Yes.
And so coming back to the therapy side of it, you mentioned a little bit about how you unpack things. How does the therapy work in the day-to-day setting of the farm?
Well, we now have we're talking about reflection and communication more than therapy, because I think it was, given the children are only there for 5 days, and we do a bit of follow-up with the children, but we're not in a position to be their therapists. So what we do is we make each activity as therapeutic as we can, in the sense that they feel safe, they feel able to communicate, they feel that they can grow. And what we do is every child has a one-to-one session with our therapeutic coordinator, which will be just a walk and a talk. And they also have a session with the horses. And it's a moment where they can feel that containment and privacy to reveal more of how they feel and what's going on for them. And we can then, at the end of the week, we do school support notes to try and help identify that for the teachers, what are the triggers and vulnerabilities of this child. What are the things that they need to help them have the confidence to ask for help, to put up their hand, to feel they can navigate the world at school? And so we're trying to help build that bridge. And those conversations that they have from our staff, who are all very skilled at facilitating that sense of safety and so openness with children, we find ways that we can to try and translate that into something that's tangible that schools can
Yes.
on. And often
Yes.
you don't understand why a child gets triggered by certain things. But with the understanding, a teacher can be much more compassionate or helpful. And, so for now we're also trying to involve teachers in coming to have a sort of immersive piece of CPD with us in a purposeful way of looking at their own practice and how they can change their practice in school. Because
Amazing.
we can't open up 100 files. We wouldn't be the same organisation, but we can try and send ripples out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just so that people understand, what is CPD?
Oh, sorry, continual professional development. So,
Gotcha.
every teacher's tasked with that kind of learning journey, and what they say is this has often been the most effective learning they feel about how to be alongside children, because they've been immersed in it themselves and can identify as humans their own point of contact. Because so often I think teachers feel they've got to be quite robotic. And actually, I know from my grandchildren, when I say, tell me about the teachers you like, it's always the ones who show up as a person and share a bit of who they are, but don't take over the whole space. But they're human, Oh, they went this year and they had a brilliant holiday, or it was terrible, it rained all the time. But that's narrative, isn't it? That's relation.
It humanizes them and a relation. Yeah. And so you talk about the transformative power of this for teachers, and obviously we've got teachers and parents listening to this. So what do you think would be the useful messages or the useful, because we can't all come to your farm, I'd love to come. Please invite me. But what are the useful messages that you can offer to teachers and parents that really might help them translate what you're doing into an environment that they are operating in?
I think every parent, in retrospect, if only I had understood a bit more about the teenage brain, that would have helped me immensely. So how to not, imagine that a 4 or 5-year-old can be logically talked out of or into doing something. I think and for teachers, for them to see that kind of impulse behaviour that's driven by that child is in the here and now, and that is not a bad thing. It's how do we direct. So I think as a parent or a teacher, I think actually redirecting the flow of energy, but keeping it interesting and positive and relational, for me is critical. Once you sort of make things just dry and dull, whether you're to a 3-year-old or a 16-year-old, it seems to me you shut down a natural curiosity. But I would also say those 3 things at home, as well as at school, like bringing in the sense of purpose you talked about, that sense of there being outcomes. Okay, let's do this together today and achieve that. But then the feedback loop, so that you do the check-ins, you do the thank yous, the shout-outs, you do celebrate. So
love that.
Working from positives. Children learn through positives, not...
Yes.
It's a waste of time. You are merely dumbing down the human being so that they might then explode, out of frustration.
Wow.
So I think work with the positives and be authentic, because there's so many... and I thought also actually would add to that, Rachel, I think this thing of boundaries and phones, because children are quite grateful to us.
Yes.
And someone else took the responsibility for them and said, okay, no phones. And it's not that they shouldn't ever have phones, but as adults, we've often stepped outside from what they tell me is like on the podcast series I've just recorded with these older children, trying to glean what is it that made the difference. They're talking about the fact that they didn't have the phone meant they could have social contact, that they could be present, that they weren't hiding behind the screen. And then, moreover, they weren't anxious about all of the things that phones, particularly girls, all the negative feed. And that's the other thing I would say is share your positivity, because isn't it dull and difficult to have to always live with the misery of the world?
Yes. Yes.
The news feeds kids get are based always on negativity. And I think they deserve to have joy. Bring joy back, the fun.
We need to, yes. And we need to, I think it's interesting because I've got girls, and modelling how wonderful my life is as a woman. I know there are challenges and I share my challenges with them, but actually I think it's so important that we're positive about what the opportunities are, and we stop and enjoy the moment. It can make such a massive difference. Even just sharing, the whole sharing a meal together, and how fundamentally important that is. And when everybody chips in, how lovely it is that we are doing something together. Because you always have meals together, don't you, on your farm?
Food and meals are really critical. Like, they arrive often tanked up on Haribos and on fizzy drinks, and it's not surprising that their behaviour is very, very scatty. And then one thing we do is we try and help them see where their food comes from. We give them really good food that they cook. They get involved with it. They take away a recipe book that they've helped co-create some of those.
Oh wow, that's great.
And that's sitting around a table, and they so often say to me, when I go home, I'm going to ask my family, I'm going to cook a meal and I'm going to ask them to sit down and eat, because the majority of the children we see eat in their rooms, and they and they don't have much time together, and the parents have kind of given up because they're very stressed often.
Very stressed.
It's really hard as an adult as well as a child, isn't it, to keep everything going? So I think having those meal times and making them joyful. And the other thing I think that families have forgotten how to do is games. The kids here love it. We play board games, we play card games, we play other games. They love it when everyone joins in a game, because it's such a level playing field, and you don't get judged on whether you're beautiful or clever or whatever.
Yes, and then the game's played, and then it finishes, and if you lost, you have another turn, and it's a very I couldn't agree more, and it's stuff I've learned as a parent going through this experience, and that actually it's so stressful because you're so worried about money and work, and then making sure the kids are okay, and if we can boil it down to some very simple things that will definitely make a difference and make our kids feel they have purpose and they're important. So just even playing games together. One of the things I've been trying to institute is phones away by 9 o'clock, or, computer devices, and then just do something together.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Well, that's the thing. When you say that, Rachel, it just reminds me the biggest thing here is these children sleep, and they do not sleep.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one reason they don't go to school, is that they've been up gaming till 2 or 3, or scrolling, or doom scrolling. And sleep, I didn't know that as a parent. If I wound the clock back, I would have got my children to bed earlier, because I let them stay out very late. And I remember my mother used to say, these children should be in bed. Now I know that the brain needs sleep. And that's how they download and can digest the day and come out of it the next morning. So taking the phones away, letting them sleep.
100%. Yeah, we have actually got some episodes on sleep and how it's the free fix. It's like if you could give a tablet to somebody that was free and that would make a massive difference to their performance, you'd do it. Well, just sleep. Get them sleeping.
Yeah, and free fix is nature, actually. I didn't say
yes.
They love nature.
Yes.
And we underestimate what beauty does for children. Sharing beautiful things, spaces. Nature's free, and for them to know it's accessible.
Yeah.
And that is massively impactful on teenagers.
Yes. Absolutely. And well, interestingly, I walk around the fields here a lot, and I have mentioned to a lot of listeners, you can get on apps like All Trails and for free, and you can just, wherever you are, look around for all the footpaths and go walking. Just get outside and walk, or get on a train or a bus or something and go to somewhere where there are, in England we have a green belt, which is there deliberately to give people, green spaces that they can go and access. Get a picnic, go and spend some time together. And what I found really interesting was I was walking the dogs the other day, and there's an area where it used to just be quite empty field, and what's happened is all the trees have taken over. They haven't been chopped down. They're all fighting for space. But walking through that was one of the most special moments, and I suddenly thought, this is what people talk about when they talk about tree bathing.
Yes,
Which just, I was like, oh, and I think that we just touching the grass, they talk about how it just, when the birds are singing, you hear the birds singing, how it just calms your nervous system, because we're designed to know that when the birds are relaxed and we can relax and all that stuff that you're reaching into.
Impact, yes. And then they can, whatever age a child is, they can play in nature, can't they? I took a grandson to the woods at the weekend, and he built a den, and I just sat and watched him at one point and thought, I'm enjoying this piece. I'd had 100 the night before for a party, and I was in recovery mode, and being in the woods was recovery. It was, and same for teenagers who are stressed about exams. Go sit in the wood and have a picnic. It's
I love that.
Very special about it.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Tish, if people are interested in finding out more, if they want to try and access your services in any way, I'm sure you have a massive waiting list, and it's, or they want to find out how they can model what you're doing, how would they get in contact with you?
Yeah, they can look on the website, and then they can email me, Tish at jamiesfarm.org.uk. Sadly, we don't work with individuals. It's really heartbreaking. We can't say to an individual family, yes, by all means, we'll have your child, because all of the weeks are group-based, and they usually work most powerfully when they're children who will continue that social relationship.
Yes.
They come from schools, or they come as looked after children, or they come sometimes with a virtual school. But there are adults who come with them who can transfer the methodology and continue it. But what I would say is, if you've got a child that you think would really benefit, then you should talk to your school, because the schools are really receptive to this realization that this can change the course of a child's life. We have a lot of young people come back as teachers or as youth workers who came here as children, and they say, it just changed my whole outlook. So persuade the schools or the groups and get a group together to bring with them. And it seems to me that the methodology is really important to share. So I've got a series of other things like podcasts and blogs, and I've written a book, which, although it's titled Changing Lives of Troubled Teenagers or something of the sort, it's actually just for any teenagers or parents, because so often we get lost as a parent, don't we? I mean, it's very hard to beat yourself up and I'm not doing a good enough job.
Oh, 100%. All the time.
What's natural, isn't it, is that our children put their unrest and their unhappiness into us. And there's that phrase, as a mother, you're only as happy as your least happy child. And we need pathways to navigate. So please look on the website. There's lots of things. There's films, resources. I really hope it's supportive in some way to your listeners.
Oh, it's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I love what you're doing. Just before we go, are there any stories of transformation that have really stuck with you in the time that you've been doing this?
Oh, yes. There's lots. But there was one young lady who was I suppose she was kind of classic in the sense that she was really on the edge of exclusion. And she was not engaging with school, and she was a big personality. And so often those are the children that quite intimidate others, and they're hard to like. in that pose that they're revealing. So with Adele, I remember she came and wasn't going to get off the bus. Eventually she did. She wasn't going to do this. She wasn't going to do that. And then in the end, they had a hike on our Hereford farm. They go on a hike in the middle of the week. She was not going on that hike. Long story short, she did. And she got to the top of this mountain and she saw the view, and she says to this day, she's now a care worker. She's a remarkable young woman who's given so much to so many people. She said, I realised that I could do things. It went from I can't and I won't to I will and I can. And it was a new version of herself. And she went back to school, and the school were really happy to support her. But what she'd felt was, like lots of children, she felt a sense of failure, and she masked it with this kind of callous out external, I don't give a damn facade. But she's actually the most sensitive, lovely, funny, talented, interesting human. And she's worked with us post, coming to Jamie's farm, and we're still in touch. So we have lots of children like that, and it's wonderful to see what they're doing in adulthood. So for all of us, it's that, like you talked about that farmer who asked you how you felt. My house, my model of my family was based on a farmer's wife that I knew, whose door was always open to teenagers. They all came and went. And that's what I was trying to do with my home, and now we have the same sort of feeling we hope we create across the other farms for more children.
Oh, I have so much admiration for you. I absolutely love what you're doing. Thank you so much for spending the time to just explain it to us and give us some hope and some joy. If you found this episode useful, please send it to at least one person that you know. You can review it on your app, or you can go to my website, which is www.teenagersuntangled.com. You can review it there, look through my blogs, look for other episodes. I'm going to put some other episodes with this so that you can explore some of the themes we've talked about, and of course contact details for Tish so that you can reach her that way as well. That's it for me. Have a great week. Big hug. Bye-bye.